Imagine turning an 11-day road trip into a 40-year nightmare simply because you were just, too terrified to cross the finish line. May God bless your day, and may He bless the entire week ahead of you.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a genuine joy to welcome you into our conversation today. We are taking a deep dive into the very first chapter of the book of Deuteronomy.
Which is such a dense, fascinating chapter.
It really is. And we are pulling our insights today from the comprehensive scholarship found in the Holman and NWA study Bibles.
Right, some really excellent sources there.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is to explore, well, the anatomy of ultimate self-sabotage. We're looking at Moses delivering this massive historical recap to the Israelites, and we're unpacking the severe psychological barriers of fear.
And finding some incredibly timeless lessons on leadership and justice along the way.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at the text, Moses is suddenly just, talking, but context is everything. So where exactly are we starting this story?
Well, to set the stage geographically, Moses is standing on the plains of Moab.
Okay.
This is a region just east of the Jordan River. So they are literally looking right at the border of the Promised Land.
Wow, right on the edge.
Right. And historically, what Moses is doing here is fascinating. He isn't just rambling about the good old days. He is delivering an address that functions as a historical prologue.
A historical prologue, like a legal thing.
Exactly like a legal thing.
Right.
In the ancient Near East, when a king, a sovereign, made a major treaty with a vassal state, the document almost always started with this kind of prologue.
Detailing, everything the king had done for them.
Yes, detailing everything the sovereign had done to earn their loyalty.
So this isn't just an elder leader reminiscing around a campfire. It's a highly structured, legal, covenantal argument.
That's right. He is preparing a completely new generation of Israelites to finally cross that river. The original generation completely failed, and we'll get into exactly why.
Yeah, we definitely will.
In fact, the Hebrew name for the book of Deuteronomy is Devarim, which translates literally to the words.
The words, I like that.
Yeah, these are the final crucial words of a leader trying desperately to prevent a second generation from repeating a historical catastrophe.
And before we get to the giant grapes and the absolute disaster at the border, we really have to talk about the staggering, tragic math of this whole situation.
The timeline is just brutal.
It is. There's a detail tucked right at the beginning of the text in verse 2 that just stops you in your tracks. The text explicitly notes that it is only an 11-day journey from Mount Horeb.
Which is Sinai, where they got the law.
Right, Sinai. An 11-day journey from there to Kadesh Barnea, the border town of the Promised Land. 11 days.
Just over a week and a half.
Yeah. Yet verse 3 casually mentions that they're sitting there listening to Moses in their 40th year. Wait, how do you stretch an 11-day walk into 4 decades?
What's fascinating here is the deliberate juxtaposition the text is making. I mean, the author wants you to feel the agonizing weight of that delay.
You definitely feel it.
This juxtaposition of a purely geographical 11-day trip with a 40-year spiritual and psychological delay, it highlights the staggering cost of their disobedience.
Because the physical distance was incredibly short?
Exactly. But their internal posture, their complete refusal to trust, it created a 4-decade chasm of time.
Think about your own life for a second. I mean, how often do you turn an 11-day task or a necessary life transition or even just a difficult conversation into a decades-long struggle?
All at a time.
Right, simply because of your own internal roadblocks.
Right.
You can end up wandering in your own private desert because you are terrified to take the direct route and just face what's over the border.
It is a devastatingly common human experience. Yeah. And as Moses begins recounting this 40-year history to the new generation, he doesn't actually start with the failure at the border.
He starts earlier.
Right. He starts with a profound crisis of his own leadership. He reminds the people that God had drastically multiplied their population.
Like the stars of heaven, I think is the phrase he uses.
Yes, exactly. They had become like the stars of heaven. This is a direct callback to the ancient promise made to Abraham, that his descendants would be innumerable.
But the reality of managing an innumerable population is far less romantic than the promise sounds.
To say the least.
Right. I actually laughed when I read this part because the logistics are just absurd. You can't have a population the size of the stars in the sky and just one guy sitting on a rock trying to settle every petty argument.
Arguments about, like, a runaway sheep or a skull and pot?
Yes. Moses admits he was literally cracking under the pressure. He says, "How can I bear your weight, your burden, and your disputes all by myself?"
He was facing a total administrative collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, a nomadic society of that size without a functioning judicial system would quickly devolve into chaos.
It would be anarchy.
Total anarchy. So Moses implements a highly structured solution of delegation. He instructs the people to choose wise, intelligent, and experienced leaders from their tribes.
So not just the popular guys in the camp.
No, definitely not. The underlying scholarship points out these men had to be thoroughly tested and recognized for their moral character. Moses then appoints them as commanders over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens.
Okay, I want to pause on that because I really need to understand how that actually worked. Why the specific fractions of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens?
Well, it operates like a beautifully decentralized appellate court system.
Okay, walk me through that.
Imagine the camp. If you have a neighborhood squabble over a broken tool, you don't take it to Moses. You take it to the commander of 10.
Like a local block captain.
Essentially, yes. If the issue is too complex for him, it goes up to the commander of 50, then the 100, and finally the 1,000.
So Moses is totally shielded from the daily grind.
Exactly. Only the most unprecedented, nation-defining issues ever made it to Moses. It completely removed the bottleneck of leadership and allowed a massive population to function smoothly while on the move.
That makes perfect sense. But, an organizational chart is only as good as the people running it. Moses gives them strict instructions on how to actually dispense justice, and this is where it hits home for any modern society.
Because he demands absolute impartiality.
Yes.
He lays down a very firm foundation. The judges must hear disputes, and they must judge fairly, regardless of who is standing in front of them.
Which was probably a revolutionary concept back then.
Oh, entirely.
Yeah.
Moses specifically outlines that this fairness applies equally, whether it's a dispute between two native-born Israelites or between an Israelite and a foreigner living among them.
Wow. So a resident alien had the exact same legal standing in the court as a native citizen.
The exact same.
And the phrasing here is incredible. I saw in the translations that the Hebrew phrase for "do not show partiality" literally translates as "do not look at a face."
Yes. Blind justice. In the ancient world, looking at a face meant recognizing someone's wealth or their social status or their powerful family connections.
And ruling in their favor because of it.
Exactly. Moses is forbidding that entirely. A judge must not be influenced by friendship or fear of retaliation. He tells them, do not be intimidated by anyone, for judgment belongs to God.
He was establishing a society where the rule of law was rooted in divine righteousness, not just, the whims of human power dynamics.
Exactly.
Okay, so Moses builds this robust, divinely inspired organizational machine. They have block captains, commanders, an appellate system. But as we transition to that border town, Kadesh Barnea, we quickly learn a brutal lesson.
Which is?
Absolutely no organizational chart can fix a national lack of courage.
Wow. Yeah, structure is completely useless if the people inside the structure refuse to move forward.
Right. So they are finally camped at Kadesh Barnea. The promised land is right in front of them. Moses tells them, "The Lord has placed the land before you. Go up, take possession."
But the people pump the brakes.
Hard. They suggest sending spies first. 12 men, one from each of the 12 tribes, are sent to spy out the hill country of the Amorites.
And they go to a place called the Valley of Eshcol.
Now, translating Eshcol literally gives us cluster of grapes, right?
Yes, because the fruit growing there was of impossible abundance. These 12 spies physically cut down this massive cluster of grapes and carry it back to the camp.
They show it to the people and declare, "The land the Lord our God is giving us is good."
They bring back undeniable, tangible, physical evidence that the promise is real and that the land is exactly as fertile as they were told.
So here's where it gets really interesting. If they have the literal physical, the actual giant grapes from the valley right there in their hands, confirming that everything is true, why do they completely panic?
It's totally irrational.
It defies all logic. Why do they absolutely refuse to step forward?
Well, because the physical proof of the blessing was entirely overshadowed by their psychological terror.
Oh.
Yes, they brought back the grapes, but they also brought back a paralyzing report. They suffered what you might call a catastrophic failure of perspective.
Meaning they just hyper-focused on the bad.
Exactly. They looked at the challenges, and their fear magnified those obstacles way beyond reality. The spies reported that the cities were massive and fortified up to the heavens.
Up to the heavens. So dramatic.
Very dramatic. And far worse, they reported seeing the sons of the Anakim.
Okay, the Anakim, wait, who are they? The text treats them like they are monsters from a nightmare.
To a nation of recently freed slaves, they essentially were. The scholarly context here clarifies that the Anakim were descendants of Anak and Arba. These were literal giants.
Like actual giants.
Yes, people of immense physical stature and renowned military prowess. Some historical links suggest they were the ancestors of the giant Philistine warriors like Goliath, who appear later in biblical history.
Oh, wow. Okay, that puts it into perspective.
Right. Now, put yourself in the Israelites' shoes for a second. You have spent your entire life making bricks in the mud in Egypt. You've been wandering in a harsh desert.
You're not exactly a seasoned soldier.
Not at all. And suddenly, you are told to go conquer colossal, stone-fortified walls defended by giant warriors. The sheer physical intimidation of the Anakim completely erased all memory of the Red Sea parting.
It erased the plagues in Egypt.
It erased God's power entirely in their minds.
I want to dive into the psychology of what happens next because it's a complete reversal of reality. The text says the people stayed in their tents and grumbled.
And the narrative they spin out of their panic is astonishingly toxic.
It really is. They don't just say, we are scared of the giants. They actually start claiming that God brought them out of Egypt because he hated them.
It's wild.
They literally say, because the Lord hates us, he brought us out of Egypt to hand us over to the Amorites to destroy us.
It is the ultimate paranoid delusion born of fear. When a person is overwhelmed by anxiety, the brain just struggles to process the cognitive dissonance.
It's like a malicious computer virus.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. Anxiety doesn't just mess up your current software. It retroactively crawls through your hard drive, finds all your saved files, every good memory, every success, every miraculous rescue, and corrupts them.
Renaming them as traps.
Exactly. It makes you look at a lifetime of deliverance and say, this was all just an elaborate setup to destroy me.
That is a brilliant way to describe it. Their fear leads them to project malicious intent onto a God who has only ever shown them rescue and provision.
Yeah.
And this brings us to Moses' desperate attempt to reason with them. He sees this toxic virus spreading through the camp, and he tries to reorient them to the truth using one of the most beautiful, intimate metaphors in the entire book.
Moses pleads with them. He says, don't be terrified. The Lord your God who goes before you will fight for you, just as he did in Egypt.
And then he drops this incredible image.
He does. He says, in the wilderness, you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a man carries his son, all the way until you reach this place. He reminds them of the pillar of fire by night and the cloud by day that guided them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the contrast is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You have the people screaming, God hates us and wants to kill us, and Moses responding, look at your own history.
Yeah.
God carried you like a father holding his child.
It's a huge disconnect.
And those manifestations, the fire and the cloud, warrant a closer look. The study notes point out they weren't just some ancient mystical GPS system showing them which way to walk.
Right, so what were they actually doing?
Well, the desert is a lethal environment. During the day, the sun is blisteringly, dangerously hot. The cloud was a massive canopy that provided a literal shield of shade for millions of people.
Oh, I never thought of it as physical shade.
Yeah. And the desert at night, it drops below freezing. The pillar of fire provided immense thermal warmth and light in the freezing pitch-black darkness. The cloud and the fire were visible manifestations of God's glory, his holiness, and his active physical protection. It was a constant, tangible embrace against the elements.
So they are acting exactly like a rebellious teenager.
Pretty much.
Imagine a teenager standing in a terrifying dark forest screaming, you don't care about me, you've never done anything for me, at a parent who has literally been holding their hand, shielding them from wild animals, and walking them safely through the pitch black for years.
It's irrational.
The parent is standing there thinking, I have carried you this whole way and you still don't trust me.
And tragically, just like with the deeply entrenched rebellious mindset, Moses' beautiful metaphor doesn't work. The people absolutely refuse to trust.
The virus of fear has completely taken over.
And the consequence of this absolute disbelief is severe and unbending. God hears their grumbling and swears a profound oath.
That none of them will enter.
Right. He declares that not a single one of that evil, unbelieving generation will see the good land he promised to their ancestors. The door is officially closed.
Not a single one of them. Well, except for two specific guys. Caleb and Joshua.
Yes, and the text is clear on why. Caleb and Joshua were the only spies who persevered in following the Lord.
Even though they saw the exact same things.
Exactly. They saw the exact same giants in the valley. They saw the exact same fortified walls. but their faith in the promise was larger than their fear of the Anakim.
And because of that, God promises they will inherit the land. But for the rest of that adult generation, the sentence is passed.
The tragedy is so sweeping that even Moses himself is told he will not cross the Jordan River, though the specific circumstances of Moses' own personal failure are detailed later in the historical account.
But there's a massive irony in God's judgment here that I just don't want to miss. During their panic attack, the Israelites have been using their children as an excuse for their cowardice.
Oh, yes. That is a crucial detail.
They had been wailing, our little ones will become plunder, our kids will be taken as prey, and God takes that excuse and turns it right upside down on them.
He really does.
He says, those little ones you said would be taken captive, the children who do not yet know good from bad, they will be the ones to enter the land. I will give it to them.
It is a profound reversal of their logic. The very people they claim to be protecting with their fear, their innocent children, are the only ones who will actually inherit the blessing.
God essentially says, your adult cynicism disqualified you, so I will give the prize to the blank slates.
Exactly. But the disaster doesn't end with them simply accepting their punishment.
Oh no. Human nature strikes again. We get this sudden disastrous pivot.
It's giving me whiplash just reading it.
Right. When the people hear this terrifying consequence that they're going to die out in the wilderness, they suddenly change their tune completely. They swing wildly from extreme paralyzed cowardice to absolute reckless arrogance.
They announce, we have sinned, we will go up and fight, just as the Lord commanded us.
They literally strap on their weapons and start marching up the mountain into the hill country to face the giants.
Which forces Moses to sprint after them and deliver a chilling warning. He tells them, do not go up and do not fight, for I am not among you.
He warns them they will be absolutely crushed.
Because God's presence is no longer endorsing this military mission.
Wait, I have to push back here. Why is this wrong? I mean, weren't they finally doing exactly what God originally asked them to do?
It looks like it on the surface.
They are grabbing their swords and heading to the promised land. Why is Moses telling them to stop?
This raises an important question because it cuts to the absolute core of what faith actually is. There is a massive fundamental difference between true faith and desperate regret.
Okay, unpack that.
When they were originally commanded to go, they had God's promise of victory. Their presence there was authorized. Now they're not fighting out of a sudden miraculous surge of belief in God's power.
They're just fighting to dodge a consequence.
Exactly. They're fighting solely to dodge a consequence they don't like. They are trying to force a blessing that they already formally rejected. God's protective cloud is not moving with them up that mountain.
And they ignore the warning entirely. They march up into the hills in their arrogance, and the result is an absolute slaughter.
It's awful.
The text describes it vividly. The Amorites who lived in those hills came out against them, chased them as bees do, and beat them down from Seir all the way to Hormah.
I want you to sit with that specific imagery for a moment. As bees do. If you have ever stumbled into a hive and been chased by a swarm of angry bees, you know exactly what that feels like.
It's terrifying.
It is chaotic, it is stinging, it is overwhelmingly fast, and there is absolutely nowhere to hide. It is an enveloping terror.
Wow.
That metaphor perfectly captures the disastrous reality of trying to fight battles you were never authorized to fight. They tried to conquer the giants in their own strength, relying on their own weapons without the protective presence of God, and they were completely and utterly routed.
They returned to the camp weeping.
But as the text solemnly notes, the Lord did not listen to their voice. They were sentenced to remain in Kadesh, to begin their long, bitter 40-year wandering.
It is just a relentless, heavy chapter of human failure. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today.
We really have.
We looked at an 11-day journey that was stretched into a 40-year nightmare entirely because of an internal posture of fear. We explored the crushing burden of leadership and the beautiful, deeply impartial, decentralized system of justice Moses established to save the camp from chaos.
A brilliant system.
And we stared down the giant-sized anxieties in the Valley of Eshcol, where we saw the paradox of proof, how having literal physical evidence of success isn't enough to overcome psychological terror.
And finally, we felt the stinging defeat, that horrifying swarm of bees that comes from stubbornly trying to force outcomes in our own strength.
So what does this all mean? When you look at this ancient historical text, it is clearly a timeless masterclass in how your internal perspective completely dictates your external reality.
It truly is. And before we close, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building directly on the events we've discussed.
Go for it.
We touched on the detail, That the little ones, the children who didn't yet know good from evil, were the exact ones who eventually got to inherit the promised land. I want you to deeply consider what it means to need a childlike blank slate to accept a massive life-changing gift.
That's profound thought.
Think about your own life right now. Are your sophisticated adult analytical skills, the very skills you use to calculate risks, anticipate problems, and clearly identify the giants and the fortified walls standing in your way, are those exact skills sometimes your biggest barrier to stepping into new territory?
Wow.
Perhaps inheriting the promises in your life requires far less adult calculation and a lot more childlike trust in the Father who has been carrying you the whole way.
That is a brilliant thought to carry with you this week. Are you overanalyzing the giants, or are you trusting the Father? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next week to explore even more. God blesses all the listeners, and we will catch you next time.